There's a lot of time ahead of us to talk about debates, but I have been all over the state. I've talked to Arizonans in communities from Wilcox to Yuma to Sierra Vista to Flagstaff, Window Rock, and I am focused on what I'm hearing from them.
And welcome back to Square Off. 2 days after that KTAR interview in which Governor Katie Hobbs said there was plenty of time to talk about debates, the governor shut down the long-running debate over whether she would debate. For a second consecutive election, Katie Hobbs will not debate her Republican rival. This time it's Congressman Andy Biggs in the race for governor. So did Katie Hobbs learn she could get away with this 4 years ago? Our politics panel has the answer. Joining us are Christine Jones, an attorney and former Republican candidate for governor.
Hello.
And Adam Kinsey, Democratic consultant at Uplift Campaigns. Welcome back to Square Off.
Thanks for having us.
Before we start, one disclosure. Christine, you ran against Andy Biggs for Congress 10 years ago in CD5 in the primary.
Like magic, we debated.
You debated. That may have been his only debate in a
It might have been.
in a primary.
It might have been.
I mean, he's got some issues too, but that's not what we're talking about today. The Hobbs debate news, by the way, was one of two big pieces of news. Andy Biggs named his lieutenant governor candidate and not running on his ticket. We'll talk about that in a moment. Let's get back to the Hobbs debate. Does Hobbs' team, Adam, believe there is no political cost to not debating?
Obviously not a massive one. I mean, here's the thing. Debates are political theater now. The long ago are the days of the Lincoln Douglas debates and people actually making their decision, undecided voters tuning into debates. Now it's all about spin. It's all about political theater. It's all about not saying anything that can be clipped and used online because exponentially more people see those little clips on social media than actually tune into the debate. So, and this is why Andy Biggs doesn't debate either. He didn't debate in his last two general elections in 22 or 24. So there's no cost for anybody here. All this is going to happen now is it's going to allow Governor Hobbs to do some more retail politics, actually going and continuing to go on more shows and talk about her agenda and meeting voters face to face. What it's going to do for the Biggs campaign, obviously, is he's going to be aggrieved and they're going to be able to whine about this for the next 90 days, and we've already heard it. Like, they don't have issues to run on. They're going to be running on the issue of whether or not someone's going to debate. He's just going to look like a crybaby for the next 90 days if he continues on this track.
You know, this is interesting because you mentioned next 90 days. Back in 2022, Katie Hobbs answered the debate issue just 4 weeks before early ballots went out. This time she did it 10 weeks. So if he's going to talk about this for 10 weeks, that's a long time to talk about.
What else is he going to talk about, Bram?
Yeah.
Not voting against the release of the Epstein files? I'm not sure that's a good voting issue for him either.
Let's go back to the debate.
We managed to get Epstein into this conversation, Adam?
Will Katie Hobbs' decision not to debate matter to voters?
I think it matters to some voters because there are nerds like me who actually like to watch these things and listen for cues and listen for policy, actually. And I do think that there's a way to bring debates, even today, back to a policy discussion. So I regret that she's not going to do it. I was an advocate last time, looked into your camera several times and asked her to come out and debate. It gave Carrie Lake an opportunity to talk directly to voters without any interference, and now that's going to be the same thing for Andy Biggs. So Republicans won't like it, maybe some of the independents, but the people who are voting for her in the Democratic Party are going to vote for her anyway. So I think probably the damage is probably minor.
Okay, I do need to say it appears there will be a debate with Biggs, the Green Party candidate, and the No Labels candidate a few days before early voting starts. Will be a clean elections debate. Apparently, 3
Republicans on the same stage. That'll be fun.
And sorry, I didn't mean to marginalize the other two candidates. I just thought the people who have a chance to win probably should be showing up for that.
This is a reality-based show, so yes.
Okay, fair enough.
You're good there. Let's stick with the governor's race for 10 points. Andy Biggs has chosen former state senator Sina Kerr as the lieutenant governor for his ticket, a new job created by voters whose role is to fill the governor's chair when the elected governor can't be there. And by the way, voters only cast a ballot for governor, not lieutenant governor, kind of like vice president in the presidentials. How does Sina Kerr complement Andy Biggs?
Well, I think, first of all, she was an effective legislator. She is very well liked. Generations of her family have been ranchers and farmers here in Arizona. She might bring some of the rural constituents in because her seat in the legislature did represent some people outside of Maricopa County. I'm not sure there's an obvious path to bringing in an additional constituency for Biggs. Maricopa County is where the majority of the votes are, and those are the ones that you should be focusing on. They're generally ideologically aligned. You know, she has been working in a position for the Trump administration, has been a pro-Trump person, to my understanding. So I'm not sure really what the diversity is. Maybe to your earlier guest's point, this is a do no harm pick for him, or maybe it's just that they feel like they can work well together, and the last thing you want in a lieutenant governor is somebody who disagrees with you. So that could be what's motivating it as well.
Does Sina Kerr, given her voting record at the Capitol, become a target in this race?
I mean, the target is Andy Biggs, and I think this is a missed opportunity for him to try to pivot and try to bring in additional constituency. You've got somebody who's an election denier who picked another election denier to be his lieutenant governor. You've got somebody who is married to the Trump administration who picked a Trump appointee, and she's from Yavapai County, a county that he was going to win by 20 points anyway, right? So I'm not sure there's a lot of addition happening here. And I think it's interesting, too, that, you know, the two names that keep getting floated about for the Hobbs administration are both Republicans. We heard about Jimmy McCain already. That was sort of leaked, and we've heard John Giles, former Mesa mayor, also being discussed. Andy Biggs said, absolutely not, I'm not going to consider a Democrat. And then he appointed a Trump appointee, again, another election denier, to his ticket. So I think a missed opportunity for him to try to distract voters from his voting record, and it's just somebody who's going to remind them why they don't like him in the first place.
I wonder if Sina Kerr puts abortion back in the conversation, given her votes when she was in the Senate to supporting a near outright ban on abortion before Roe versus Wade was overturned, then voting against the repeal of the 1864 ban in Arizona after the right to reproductive rights were enshrined in the state constitution. That's kind of tough to defend. It's probably in line with where Andy Biggs is.
Look, there are 310,000 more Republicans than Democrats registered in Arizona, and they're managing to snatch victory out of the jaws of defeat here. And it's the extremism, it's the anti-choice agenda, and it's the Trump agenda. And so those things are not mainstream voting issues right now. They are on the wrong side of history. They're on the wrong side of public opinion, and this just reinforces his issues that he's already in trouble with.
Is it an unforced error to make that a potential target in your lieutenant governor?
For sure, and we've already seen this as well settled here in Arizona. The Supreme Court has spoken, the legislature has spoken, the people have spoken. To Adam's point, more than 50% of the population kind of agrees on this matter. Opening up this wound, which had been kind of closed for a minute, is probably an unforced error, but I really don't see this becoming a big deciding factor in this election, because if you're looking at what's going on globally, particularly when we have people coming across borders in other places that we're now seeing, like in Spain, and there are things that people are going to want to focus on that don't have to do with a settled issue of law, I think.
All right, let's move on to the school voucher debate. Will it head to the ballot in November? Excuse me, it's looking like it. As we reported in the previous segment, Republicans' grand plan for taking out the school voucher initiative appears to be blowing up on the launch pad. 2 decisions against it last week in court. There's still one more court ruling, still a little bit of ways to go, but wasn't there a last-minute compromise that Republicans could have had to take care of all of this?
Yeah, I think this is probably maybe too cute by half. And now, look, any good lawyer could come up with a challenge to any referral or any proposition. Anybody can say it's got 2 issues in it, which is the issue here. You can say the language is not clear. We don't believe in your signatures. Anybody can bring a challenge to one of these things, and we pretty much see that every single time. However, if you could do it off the ballot, you should do it and move on. And that was an error, I think, on the part of the legislators, and particularly the Republicans.
Well, and this is a legislative Republican group that is using the referral for their own political purposes. They were negotiating with education groups about the ESA reforms. That blew up, so they put them on the chopping block. They said, not only are we upset that we didn't get the deal made, we are now going to put your entire organization on the ballot to try to ban public sector unions altogether. And so that's just another example of instead of going after sound policy, they're just airing their political grievances, and they're using the taxpayers to do it, and they're using the referral process to do so. I think the really fascinating part is going to be what happens on the appeal for the other ESA initiative.
Okay, we're going to watch that very closely. Christine Jones, Adam Kinsey, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks,